It's 12:41 a.m. Japan time, May 5th, 2023, and I just finished rewatching Ping Pong the animation. It's probably my favorite anime, like my actual number one across all genres. I like it very much. And I've been thinking about it lately because while I'm in Japan, my mother and my sister have been asking me for more recommendations for shows to watch. That's kind of like our main bonding activity, I guess, is on the occasions that we do talk, we're usually like discussing shows that we have recently watched or that they should watch next, things like that. So yeah, I got them both watching Ping Pong, and that made me I started watching from the beginning just so I was planning to like skim it, just kind of click through it all, just so I could kind of remember the gist of it so that I could discuss it with them in more detail. And of course I ended up watching episode 1 in its entirety, and then I just kind of kept going. I watched the first 5 in my first sitting, and that was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. And then today I was just thinking about how I might want to make an MP3 about Ping Pong. So I just sat down, and I wasn't sure if I'd watch it all or not, but of course I just effortlessly went all the way from 6 to 11. Watched those 6 episodes, no problem at all. And yeah, like as usual, I took some notes, and probably the most interesting thing about Ping Pong, well actually, the way that I got into it was I became interested in it when it was airing because I randomly saw a clip from episode 1, and I am going to hold off on all spoilers until as usual. I'll try to always mention when I'm getting into spoilers. I didn't in the Mario I don't even know what word to use. I keep wanting to say the Mario video or the Mario MP3 or something. I'll find some. I don't want to call them reviews, even though a lot of them are reviews, because it's just a series of audio files of me doing whatever the hell I want, basically. So yeah, when I was talking about Mario, there we go. I didn't explicitly separate spoilers, but I usually will. But yeah, so episode 1, Peco plays Kong. I saw that clip randomly on YouTube, and I didn't even know who the characters were or what the context was, but just the scene was so interesting that I ended up watching episode 1. And I didn't really remember when exactly this was. I just remember that happened, right? Turns out that was when the show was still airing, because I checked my MAL and it says that I finished the show the day after it finished airing. So, yeah, I was watching week to week at some point, which I think actually explains how I felt about the ending the first time I saw it. And again, I'll get to that when we're in spoiler territory. But yeah, it was really good. One of the just the best, most impactful stories, I guess you would call it. I don't even know how to describe. That's what makes Ping Pong so great for me, is that there's so much good about it, but it's like impossible to summarize, I think. Like the more I've thought about it a lot, and even during this watch, I was thinking to myself, what is like the big overarching theme here that I can really summarize it efficiently, right? Like what's the most efficient way to, like, not to not like an abridgment of it, but you know what, like just kind of like if someone asks me what is Ping Pong about, what would my answer be, right? And the more I think about it, the more that I really just don't fucking know. Because honestly, what Ping Pong is about is it's just about these two guys, Smile and Peco, and they're both like, you know, really good at ping pong, basically. And then anything beyond that, anything that I try to, any more of a summary that I try to give, it always just like falls flat to me. Like it misses the point, or it gives like an incomplete idea that could be misleading about what the show is actually trying to say. But yeah, it's just, you have all these characters and lots of like interesting, dramatic things happen. The characters are very well like realized. They feel like realistic is a word that people use a lot. I generally don't like that word because it makes me think about realism, right? But it's just like the characters all feel like they're believable in some way, right? They actually have motivations. they bounce off of each other, or they clash, or they bolster each other, and it's all just so interesting. And I've tried to approach it in several different ways, and it's just there's just so much good shit in this show. I was so desperate for like trying to give some structure to my thoughts on this show. I even went and watched I searched Ping Pong animation review on YouTube, and I watched like the top 6 or 7 results, I think, and they were all kind of really bad. But that's just YouTube, right? It's not that this show is particularly, well, maybe it is particularly difficult to review, but I'm just not surprised that the reviews were not so good. But yeah, I made some notes here about what I didn't like about other reviews. There's really no point in getting into that. I guess let's just go ahead and get into spoiler territory. Before I do, I will say, if you're unsure about this show, you really should just watch it. It is very bingeable, but you don't have to binge it. It is bingeable. Where actually, when I convinced my mother to watch the first episode, she ended up watching the whole show in one sitting. And if this wasn't my 5th or 6th time seeing Ping Pong, I might have watched it in one sitting myself this time. But yeah, go watch the first episode. Like I said, there's a short clip from episode 1 is what kind of like drew me in, made me actually watch it. And I think that if you see episode 1 and you just don't give a shit, then if you watch episode 1 and you think this is lame, then you can just safely stop. I'm not going to encourage you to go on, honestly. You will not experience the highest highs of Ping Pong, but you have to at least... I feel like episode 1 will make most people curious enough to continue on its own. It's very solid. The whole show is just paced so well. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So spoilers from here on out. All the characters in this show are really interesting. And again, it's really difficult to summarize what makes them all so good. When I'm thinking about the structure of how all the characters play off of each other, it's fairly obvious that Smile and Peco are the main characters, right? And then everyone else is pretty much just defined by their relationship with Smile and Peco, to some extent, right? There are a few smaller exceptions. Like there's the guy with the big penguin eyebrows. I forget what his name is. He's one of the few guys I can never think his fucking name. The one who was in love with the ginger girl. Like those two specifically are the ones that come to mind that are less less closely linked with Smile and Peco in terms of what they go through in the show. And interestingly enough, they're also the two that don't seem like strictly better off, right? I feel like everyone in this show becomes better, except maybe for those two and other less important characters that maybe the guy who wanders the world looking for a purpose, and he leaves Ping Pong only to come right back to Ping Pong at the very end. Who's to say if he'll actually stick with Ping Pong or not? But yeah, they're also interesting. Like I tried several ways to sort of like map out sort of a general idea of how all the characters are structured, but it really is like all so asynchronous. They're all it's basically just a bunch of good characters who just interact, and that's the whole show. You know, you have like Smile contrasted with Peco, and they're both very talented Ping Pong prodigies. That is kind of what sets them apart from everybody else, is their innate like potential, right? I don't think anybody else has that. Like, I was trying to think if is there anyone else who would definitely be like considered a prodigy. I can't actually think of anybody. I mean, like Kong is really good, right? But it's not even really made super clear how much of his proficiency at ping pong is like innate talent and hard work that he puts in, right? It seems like just like a normal combination of the two, right? And I don't get any like signals either way. Where Smile and Peco are both naturals, right? And they both, at the start of the show, neither of them are really giving it their all. And Smile is... Well, at the start of the show, you know, Smile, they call him Smile because he never smiles, right? and then Butterfly Joe. I can't think of what his name is now. I'll just call him Joe. Joe comes in, and sort of like he sees Smile's potential at the start of the show, and that is what you think. That's what I thought, at least, that the show is going to be about. At the beginning of the show, it has this really, really clear. I don't even know if that's what it was going for consciously or not. Probably so on some level, but at the beginning of the show, it has this perfect setup for like the most cliche, like sort of like standard sports anime setup, right? Peiko's really good. He's kicking everyone's ass. Everyone thinks Peiko's the best. And Smile can't play at his best against Peiko. So like Kong notices in episode 1 that Smile is letting Peiko win. So it looks very much like everyone thinks Peiko is the best, but Smile is actually the best, and he needs to have his hidden potential brought out. And why can't I think of the Butterfly Joe's name? Hold on, Butterfly Joe. I gotta know what his name is. It's bothering me now. Okay, I looked it up. His name is Koizumi. That's right. So yeah, Smile has all its potential. Koizumi sees it. It seems like a very cliche sort of setup where Smile is the secret underdog, or like the diamond in the rough, right? And Koizumi is going to elevate him, and he'll realize his potential and become the best in the show, basically, right? Like a sort of like a typical. I haven't seen many sports anime, but it does seem like a very it's a generally cliche kind of story, right? The main character having hidden potential so that he can be the best. And it really ends up just kind of not being that, right? Like Smile and Peiko are both gifted, and it turns out, at the end of the show, it's revealed that Smile is called, that Peiko gave him the nickname because he smiled when he played ping pong, because he thought that Peiko was just so cool and loved playing ping pong with him, and he got joy from that, right? But Peiko was so gifted that he just kind of was stagnating, and he was kicking everyone's ass. He didn't even really have to try, so he lost that drive, right? And because Peiko had lost his shine, that sort of caused Smile to become depressed and to lose his joy in ping pong too. So that's really what these two main characters are at the start, is they're a couple of like dysfunctional prodigies. And man, it's so interesting too, because the show is kind of like about them, but they both go on their like separate journeys where like Smile is made better by his Koizumi taking an interest in him, right? And then Peiko realizes that he's not as good as he thought. Kong beats him, and then he gets knocked out of the tournament by Sakuma. And then he just kind of just gets really depressed. Like he realizes that he's not as good. He's not as good as he thought, and he thinks that just means that he doesn't have any talent. But really, it was just his complacency, right? And he gives up, grows his hair out, puts on weight, and just is kind of out, right? But then because Koizumi is sharpening Smile, to Smile's Smile doesn't really appreciate it. Koizumi kind of forces him to realize his potential on some level, and then because of that relationship between Koizumi and Smile, Smile gets better. And then because Smile is better, he starts attracting everyone's attention, right? And I feel like noticing that Smile was getting so much attention for being so great kind of made Peiko jealous, right? Because he wanted to be the star, and now Smile is becoming that. It's sort of not even through any initiative of Smile, he's just kind of being forced into it by Koizumi because he has the talent, right? And then Smile ends up, and their relationship is constructive, right? Koizumi does genuinely make Smile better, not just as a ping pong player, but he also gives him discipline. Shows him. I don't know. I it's difficult for me to nail it down exactly, but Koizumi is definitely a positive influence in Smile's life, right? Just there to look after him. I can't remember what the deal is with Smile's parents. Is Smile's dad still in the picture? I don't remember. Either way, he's not very important in this show for some reason. But but yeah, so Peco becomes jealous of Smile when he notices the news stories on his cracked phone screen on the beach, and also Smile like completely ends Sakuma's ping pong career, right? And that causes Sakuma to sort of like take that about face, and God, it's all so complicated. Well, I haven't even gotten into Sakuma's arc yet. Sakuma is interesting as well, but yeah, but Smile defeating Sakuma is what causes Sakuma to encourage Peco to get back out there and to use his talent. Like Peco feels so worthless, but then Sakuma encourages him. Like, no, you have talent, and you can see, like, look at a guy like me who tries 1,000 times harder than you and still can't hold a candle to Smile, right? Like, I wish that I had your talent. Don't waste it. And that's a really interesting contrast, too, where, like I said, when I talk about how Smile and Peco are the main characters, lots of other characters get lots of screen time. But it's really interesting how these characters are all so good, but they all facilitate elements in Smile and Peco's story, right? Like Smile and Peco are both prodigies, and Manabu, or Sakuma, Sakuma was born without talent, but tries harder than anybody in the show, and still can't become great, right? And his family name is Manabu. Excuse me. And it literally Manabu meaning to learn. And that's why when he's looking so dejected, you can see it showing that kanji, the kanji for learn, because everything that he knows about ping pong was learned. He wasn't born with it, right? And his lack of talent is juxtaposed with Smile and Peco both being born with it. And you can see this too. There's so many different elements where like Smile and Peco are like diamonds in the rough in Kanase or whatever their school's called, where everyone is kind of a loser, right? Like everyone at their school is not that great at ping pong, and Kaio is almost provided just to be the opposite of that, right? You have this huge school with these elite players who train so hard and have so much money and prestige and fame, and they still don't have the gift like Smile and Peco do. It's all very interesting. And again, it's like, that's all true. It's not really in service of any like big over-encompassing theme, right? Like there are themes in the show, like you have like the whole hero thing, and every character has like a symbol associated with them. You have like the moon and the star and the butterfly and the dragon, and also flight in general. It's kind of a theme here where like and it's all used in such interesting ways. Like Kong, a lot of his anxiety is associated with having to fly home, and you see all this symbolism of like the airplane carrying him home. But it's because he can fly, he was able to come all the way to Japan from China. His like maybe talent. It's separating talent and skill and proficiency and all. It's so many different similar words. But you know what I mean? He's so good. He is somebody who can fly, and because he could fly is how he came to Japan, and he's the one. Peco explicitly says that Kong is the one who taught him to fly, which then he goes on and teaches Kazuma to fly. Peco does. So it's interesting just how much anxiety you have from Kong about flying. Then he teaches Peco to fly. Then Peco teaches Kazuma to fly. And yeah, it's so interesting how everything fits together in such a satisfying way, even though it's not exactly like symmetrical or like quantitative. It's just all these like really nice characters who have motivations that you care about, right? God, let me check my notes really quickly. Again, because this show is so interconnected, it's easy for me to like lose myself when I'm talking about all this stuff. Let me see here. Yeah, so I made a note about how Sakuma is all drive without the talent, and Peco is all talent but has no drive at the start. Smile is also talented, and also has no drive, but even once he gets it, he has a different dream than Peco, right? Like Smile contrary to how he seems at the start of the show, Smile just wants to play ping pong because it's fun. But that was rooted in his friendship with Peco, right? And so once that was ruined for him, he really lost like the only thing that was giving him real joy, right? Yeah, let me see. What else did I have here? I also made a note about how one, like you might say, like Smile and Peco, especially like at the end when when Smile does attack Peco's weak knee, and then Peco is still able to defeat Smile. They talk about that, about like the robot like being good on the inside but like losing control or something like that, and they like sort of this theme of like the hero has to defeat the robot to save him from himself. But it's also really interesting how it's like Smile and Peco like stay true to themselves even in that last match, right? And it's contrasted with the adults. Obviously there's symmetry there. It's very obvious. They go out of their way to make it very clear. Like Peco's knee is injured, just like the Kazuma father was a long time ago. And yeah, it's God. I don't know. I have to think about this more. It's did Butterfly Joe compromise? Was it a mistake to let Kazuma win? Or is that just Joe and Kazuma and Smile and Peco are different? I don't really know. I don't know. That's the thing. It's really not heavy-handed with like there isn't even really like a moral to the story, right? It's just all these dramatic events and all these characters who, like, you look at any one character and you can totally describe who they are, what their flaws are, what they want, and they all like make these changes as the show goes. But it's just amazing how well everything goes together, and I really can't identify any like singular. I mean, any YouTube idiot can come along and be like, oh, the show is about play. It's about how we play. It's about heroes. But it's just like this is fucking idiotic, just oversimplifying everything, right? It's like I can't. I think that what makes ping pong so good is just how like diversely it uses all these like appealing and motivating and human things, right? It just like appeals on so many angles. I don't know. I can't even think of how to describe it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say with this fucking audio file. I hope that you watched it. I hope that you enjoyed it before watching me and listening to me talk about all this shit. And yeah, ping pong is great. Maybe someday when I have a better understanding of what the the structure of this is, what was the idea that allowed this story to happen, maybe I'll make a new version of this or elaborate. But yeah, it's just a very, very well made story with so many good characters. And I should mention it. I mentioned at the beginning I was going to talk about my first experience with it, because when I first watched the show, and because I was watching week to week, right? I wasn't binging it. I didn't have it all fresh in my mind every time I watched it. And so some parts of the story, I couldn't see the whole picture all at once. And so when the first time I saw the last episode, I knew that I liked the show as a whole, but it didn't quite click for me, where I felt a little dissatisfied. Like, I wish they would have shown more of the final showdown between Smile and Peco. And I also really didn't know how I felt about Peco winning. It felt strange, I can't remember. I can't remember how I felt. I remember more than anything that it felt weird. They skipped part of the last match. But that's really just, I think that's just a product of watching it week to week. Like, this show really is, like, now that it's all out, like, once you're in it, you certainly will finish the show on like a streak of like 3+ episodes, right? So that's not a problem anymore. But yeah, when you're forced to wait a whole week for that conclusion, and you don't have it all fresh in your mind, it might be easy to think that the last episode might be a little misguided in some way, but it is so perfect. That last episode really wraps everything up so nicely. And there are some things that I still, even now, don't quite have nailed down. Like, like I wanted to see Koizumi's reaction to Smile and Peiko's match, right? They kind of just like show him like at peace at the end. And I really want to know what he thinks about that, about everything that happened, with the close parallel with his memory of playing against Kazuma and throwing the match because of the injured knee, and all that work that he put into training Smile. And it's an interesting choice that they don't show us explicitly what Koizumi thought. And yeah, I think about that a lot, actually, about what if you could ask Koizumi about that last match, what would he have said? Or what if we could have cut to him right at the end of that final match? I wonder. But maybe it's in the same way maybe that's for the same reason that they don't show the final match, where it's almost like that moment isn't quite so important. God, I don't know. I really it even like talking about the show like this now, it feels like I'm going into this review unprepared, but I have thought about Ping Pong more than probably anything that I've reviewed so far. Like, this show is so interesting. And yeah, I'm going to cut this short so it's easier for me to go back and think about it, because I'm not even getting anywhere. But yeah, I hope you have a good day. Go watch Ping Pong the animation again, because hopefully you've seen it at least once by now. And yeah, I will do another, whatever these things are called, very soon.